Okay, here we are on your second exercise for week 2 here. And this is going to be creating a simple shape tween. As we get into this, I'm going to sort of describe the difference between the shape tween and the motion tween. And I think it'll make sense as we sort of see it visually. Okay. So just as we did with the other files, I'm going to create a new ActionScript 3.0. Okay. I'm entering this new file, empty, no green ball or anything over there. I want this to be a sort of separate file. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to choose the oval tool over here, just as we did when we were creating our green ball. We're going to basically draw, and I'm going to keep that same green that I have from the green ball sort of left over. We're going to draw actually on the actual stage this time. Okay, so instead of going into the library, we're going to draw on the actual stage. So we're sort of drawing a vector graphic directly on the stage. And I'm going to draw a circle. So hold down my shift, draw a circle, and I'm going to position this thing just sort of pretty bottom left there. Okay. Now, what we're doing that's different in this case is we're creating what's called a shape tween. When we have a graphic over here in the library, it pretty much stays what it is. There are ways to sort of change it and mess with it, and we'll get into that later. But we can sort of move that green ball around. We can move it as we did in the green ball or in the motion tween exercise from top to left. This shape tween is going to sort of show you guys sort of the options for fundamentally changing how this vector-based graphic moves across the stage. Okay, and this happens particularly on the stage. Okay, later we'll get into it happening in other places, but for the most part it's happening on the stage. Okay, so what I'm going to do, step 6 here, I'm going to step 6. This is going to create a new keyframe, just as it did when we placed the green ball on that one. So we have the same sort of keyframe, first layer, first frame of the timeline. Okay, so that's very, very similar to when we placed the green ball down in the bottom left. It created this keyframe. Again, this idea that something is so, or we're defining something at a given place, is the same in this instance. Okay, so I'm going to move up to frame 60, just as we did in the other one. I'm going to click, and I am going to go to Insert, Timeline, and this time we're going to do something different. This is going to be called a blank keyframe. Okay, and I want to show you via the playhead the difference here. Okay, when in the green ball exercise, the motion tween exercise, when we went up here, we just inserted a frame. And what that did was basically just extend the movie all the way out to frame 60. If you go back and look at that .fla file or your green ball motion tween file, you'll notice that up to frame 60, that green ball is basically on that bottom left. In this case, we inserted a blank keyframe. And the reason we are inserting a blank keyframe is that we want to define it in a very different way up on the top right. Okay? So I'm basically inserting a frame that has nothing in it. Okay? Before we inserted a frame that basically had the green ball extending all the way up to that frame 60. And if you look here, I'm going to grab the playhead. It exists, our sort of drawn green ball on the stage exists from frame 1 to frame 59. And when we get to frame 60, it basically becomes this blank keyframe. Okay, you might see where we're going with this. What I'm going to do is sort of define it in a different way now. Okay, so while we are there, sort of meeting on that frame 60, and I'm going to sort of reselect that. I see that as sort of a beigey thing there. I'm going to actually go to my rectangle tool. Okay, rectangle tool is just above the oval tool. And it says draw a different colored rectangle on that frame 60. Okay, so before I go to draw anything over here, I'm going to go over to my fill color, and I want to change this dramatically. I'm going to change it to a red, so that when we create this tween, it's going to sort of show a little more sort of what we've done. Okay, so step 10, we're going to draw a different colored rectangle. I'm going to draw this rectangle. on that frame. You'll see as soon as I draw something, I create a keyframe. Okay, a keyframe, not a blank keyframe, but a real keyframes. Okay, so I'm going to actually undo. You'll see that right now it's blank, meaning it's sort of a hollow black circle. I'm going to go over there. I'm just redoing this. My rectangle tool with the red and draw that. As soon as I draw, it fills in. Okay. Right now on our playhead, we have a green circle on the bottom left all the way up to frame 59, and then at frame 60 we simply have our red rectangle. Okay, what we're missing is the tween, or the in-between. Okay, so step 11, choose any frame in between that 1 and 60. So I'm just going to click anywhere there, and I'm going to go to Insert, Shape Tween. Okay, you will see a couple things. First, you will see an arrow that is created from frame 1 to frame 60, and then depending on where you are in that in between those two frames, you will see the sort of morphing of it from the green circle into the red square, or the red rectangle. I can grab my playhead and watch this thing sort of move, change colors, and simply end at that red rectangle that we drew. Okay. These two, meaning the motion tween that you created in exercise 1, or the first exercise, and our shape tween here, are two of the most fundamental ways to create animated objects. You might, depending on your knowledge of Flash or animation in general, sort of think these are sort of simplistic and easy, and they are. But they are very, very important in relation to how animation works. Okay, so what we need to do at this point is do what we did before, where we're going to file, save as. I'm going to save this as the exercise sheet states my first name, my last name, underscore motion tween, and remember we always get that .fla. I'm going to save this. Oops, sorry, this should be shape tween. I called it motion tween. Shape tween. Shape tween. Save, and just as we did with the motion tween, which I clearly had in my head there, we're going to test the movie in Flash Professional, and we see this thing morph. Now, I just sort of noticed, and I'm just sort of viewing this now inside there, underneath, and I'm just sort of pointing this out, you'll see your frame rate. I might have mentioned 12 frames per second. This one is actually defaulting to 24 frames per second. Again, this is something we're going to get into later. I just pointed it out because I was sort of mistaken on how many frames per second this defaulted to. So we have 24 frames per second, so depending on how many frames you have in this animation, it's going to run for, in this case, 2.5 seconds. So you can see this information right here. We have 60 frames, 24 frames per second, and that's going to be 2.5 seconds long. Okay? So, in a nutshell, you are handing in 2 files this week. One is your first name, your last name, underscore motion tween dot swif, and your first name, last name, underscore shape tween dot swif. Remember, we're handing in the swifts and not the FLAs. Any FLAs you get to me are because you hopefully have a little question, want to clarify something, need some help, and this will likely happen on some more complicated exercises and or projects later. However, since this is the first thing we're doing this semester, please feel free, and I'm going to close this because it's driving me crazy, please feel free to email me with questions, concerns as it relates to these 2 exercises. This is the first time we're handing something in, doing something, so it's clearly an important step towards getting you guys on track with Flash and simple motion and shape tweens. So good luck, and I will see you online.